Bonjour, brought to you by Safaricom, a proud sponsor of Team Kenya at the Olympics.
Hello there and welcome to another edition of Bonjour. Elias, hope you're keeping well. Some would say that the Olympics has officially started to some extent because the athletics program begins Friday.
Yeah, there were, people say back home in Kenya and in Africa, the race was a warm-up. Now the real game begins with the track and field program, obviously with the 10,000 meters final being the first major, competition. Yeah, so the Olympics actually begins.
Absolutely, and the 10,000 meters final will be the first second final per se in terms of medal prospects for Team Kenya, especially for the athletics event. And look at the composition of the team, the Kenyan trio. I know it's been spoken about extensively regarding the rivalry between Kenyans, Ugandans, and the Ethiopians. But I feel like where we should be very concerned is between our neighbors, ourselves, and the Ugandans.
Yeah, Uganda has a very, very strong team. The world record holder, Joshua Cheptegei, Jacob Kiplimo, are very, very strong in 5 and 10K. And again, our next door neighbors, again, Ethiopia, with Yomif Kejelcha. So it will be very, very hard. Experienced boys in the Kenyan team, Nicholas Kimeli, Mateiko, they ran very well in the trials at the US during the Prefontaine Classic. But it's going to be a very, very tough one. And a bit of teamwork to be involved. And experience, and all these athletes are experienced. The conditions are very, very hot. So although the race will be run in the evening, the humidity will still be there, and it's going to be very tough.
I think about that one, the only thing I can say is that during the race time, during race time, you don't know what will happen when you are racing. But what I know is that I'm well prepared, and also my trainmate Kimeli, I think also he is also prepared because we train together. Anything can happen.
Ya kwanza ningependa kuhaji wa Kenya kuwaomba kuwasi sana watuombe, watupikie makochi, watuombe because tunajua tumeenda ni kama vita ya kawaida kwenda kumenyana na wale watu na tutachua mwishowe tunaweza kuwa washindi because pia sisi tumetrain, wao wametrain. Najua kweli gold imekuwa kitambo ama medali kuja Kenya ya Olimpiki imekuwa muda sana, na tungeomba ikuchie kwetu mwaka huu wa 2024 iwe surprise kwa watu wote, na tunatumai kuwa kulingana na ile training tumefanya tuko na matumaini kubwa sana ambayo tumeweza kuongea kama watu watatu watendao sana ambaye ni mimi, Mateiko na Penat Kibeth. Tumeongea na kusikizana vile tunaweza enda tusaidiane tukifika pale.
Now, speaking of the Ugandans, you touched on it briefly. Jacob Kiplimo, Joshua Cheptegei. Those are the two individuals that will definitely everyone will be very keen to watch because there's a way the two work in tandem. Unlike Kenyans, Kenyans, to some extent, I usually feel like there's some level of individualism as compared to the Ugandans, because for us, strategy, yes, is important and central for any competing athlete. But the problem is we tend to find that Kenyans seem to be a bit individualistic in comparison with our opponents.
Yeah, and it's amazing how the Ugandans have been able to gel together despite being from different managements. You see Jacob Kiplimo from Rosa Associati, and Cheptegei is from Global. When you come to Kenya, you find different managements, but the athletes don't really gel. I think that team spirit needs to be there. We need to see what we saw in 1968 when we won our
that's the last time. That's almost
Naftali Temu.
Almost 66 years ago.
It's bizarre. It's going to be very tough to get this one. Kiplimo, they have run sparingly. Cheptegei have barely heard about him this season. And of course, I mentioned Yomif Kejelcha from Ethiopia, the lanky athlete who's got a good kick. So it will be a lot of mind games and tactics, and that's why, like you say, teamwork will be very, very crucial.
Just for clarity, it is actually 56 years. I got my maths mixed up there. 56 years, that's the last time that Kenya won gold, if I'm not wrong?
Yeah, gold. That was Naftali Temu at the 1968 Olympics in Mexico.
Being an Olympic year, it's really a very important year for me and my country. And the preparations have been going well.
Mimi nimekimbia na Cheptegei chako akina Kachelja nimekimbia nao kwa muda, so I think ile sometime huwa anatupiga kidogo tukienda pale Diamond League, sometime tunaweza enda na KM hawa sometime, so inatipea na ile I think penye tulikuwa tunalemewa ni ile speed, the last speed about the last 400 after pale kupika kengele 400 meters lap ambaye tumeweza kusharpen, tumeweza kuconcentrate nayo tangu tulipokata team, tuliweza kufocus na hiyo reaction ya the last lap, so tunataka tubadilishe mwenendo wetu.
I think for the 10,000 meters, it's a staple of Kenyan athletics. It's one of those competitions that, because you usually remember in terms of history, we normally start in the middle distance all the way to the marathon. So 10,000 meters is just one step into the half marathon and to the full marathon races, and that's one of the reasons why it's one of those marquee track events.
But unfortunately, it's been a debate, a lot of arguments and talks here and there about World Athletics. Why did they remove the 10,000 from most of the Diamond League circuits? So you find, athletes want to earn a living. I think there's only a couple of 10,000 meters in Eugene, and I don't remember where else. Actually, Eugene could be the only Diamond League with the 10,000 meters on the track. So you find the athletes shifting to the road. You see what, Simiyu did, Ebenyo, he's moved from the 10,000, he's going to run the Chicago Marathon because they need to make some money, they need to earn bread and take care of their family, so you cannot concentrate on a race that is not regularly run on the series.
I agree with you, because I feel, the bottom line, it's all about being race fit, if I would call it. Because if you don't have as many competitions, excuse me, because the only time that they get to be able to compete competitively is during their national trials, and then those individual unique races that you have, maybe like that one for Prefontaine Classic.
Yeah, and it's exciting again to see what will happen in the women's events, because just a couple of days ago, Sifan Hassan said she's going to run the 10,000 meters, the 5,000 meters, and the marathon. I mean, with this kind of heat and conditions, it's going to be suicidal, but it's good that she wants to challenge herself, and that's the beauty about sport.
So Elias, we've been speaking extensively about the weather conditions, and they're very unpredictable, and that's one of the reasons why it affected the men's 20 kilometers race walk.
Yeah, it's I don't know how to describe this, because the race walk was supposed to begin at 7:30 a.m., but it was pushed by half an hour to 8 a.m. because of heavy rains. And then again, shortly after that, the sun was out and it was very, very hot. And most of the competitors were really caught unawares. The bodies didn't know how to react. And Samuel Gadimba, indeed, I spoke to him and he said that, he was also alichanganyikiwa. When it's raining, then all of a sudden it's hot. And then the course was very difficult, very many sharp corners, no straights that, you can accelerate as a walker. And, a multiplicity of issues made it a bit difficult for him, and he was in the leading pack until about 4 laps to go.
Let me ask you, Elias, I would assume that when you're preparing for such a championship, you do some level of recce. So I'm assuming maybe perhaps, I don't know, is that information available for the competing race walkers?
Ideally, the technical bench should be aware, but for the sake of Kenya, I think it was a bit challenging. Coach George Kariuki, were in conversation with him for a long time. They went for the qualifiers in Dublin, Ireland, just over a month ago. But World Athletics only confirmed Kenya very late. The cutoff was 25 athletes, and then Kenya was number 26. So it was a bit of a wait and see until the final confirmation came, which was a bit late for people to try and go out on the course and have a look. So it was again a cocktail of issues that made it quite challenging for Gadimba and for Kenya.
Well, it was also a challenging outing for Kenya's Zedi Cherotich in the women's judo. Yes, she made a transition from the javelin, and then in the span of less than 4 years, she's now competing at the Olympics in judo. But it was tough for her.
But good learning lessons. I mean, when you come to a championship like this, it's a good opportunity to be in the global mix, to learn, the trends in the sport. That's why it's good for Kenya to keep on knocking on the doors and having more events. I don't know why, for example, we are not in shooting. We used to compete regularly in shooting at the Olympics. It's good to see the first woman judoka, Zedi. I think she did amazingly well by just qualifying for this Olympics. And remember, she qualified because of points. The point system, she had enough points, which means she did a lot of competitions on the circuit. And that's what we need. We need the athletes going out competing around the circuit, and by the time our championship like this comes around, they have at least gotten an experience and even competed against some of the opponents they meet at the highest level.
Elias, you traveled out of town. Tell us about your experience going to Lille to watch the game between South Sudan and the United States.
Wow, it was amazing. I mean, I've been a basketball fan from my youth, from my high school at Kadinotunga. We used to win the national schools championship.
But
basketball,
you don't say.
I don't say. I don't say. I was a point guard, and you know, I've been following the NBA, and just to get that opportunity as a journalist, you know, it gives you a chance to be one-on-one with LeBron, ask him questions, Steph Curry, watch the game. You have the front row seat, despite the fact that they lost the game. You know, it really shows how basketball has developed in South Sudan, and the crowd was amazing. So, how does it feel being here, playing against the USA?
Now I am going to match this very important because I am going to
My friend,
not to America.
Of course, South Sudan is a young country. It is now coming up with the spirit and with the talent. So this is one of the peace initiatives actually that the world should know that we are not the same South Sudan that had a problem before. So we are transforming now from the ancient time to the current civilization.
What makes South Sudan great is like, I will describe it in 2 words. We got the height and we got the heart, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, we are fighters, that's why.
You are fighters.
Yeah, we are fighters. We believe ourselves. You know, like South Sudan, anywhere. If we believe, so like we believe in themselves. So you know, like South Sudan, always.
Most of them grew up in Kenya at the Kakuma refugee camp. Others were in Dadaab. You know, they were in Nairobi. And I don't see why. I've always been saying, Bana, that why can't we have a critical look and assimilate some of these players, because there's a lot of talent coming out of the refugee camps and going out. Look at the track program begins, 800 meters, we have Marco Arop from South Sudan. Again, they transit through Kenya and go to greatness, and we just watch them. It's an opportunity for Kenya to try and you know, get these boys and give them an opportunity.
Well, you know, there was a lot of pre-match hype, a lot of expectation. But unfortunately, it's the nature of such a championship. They were brought down back to earth.
Yeah, I mean, the first quarter is the one which really killed them. It was almost a 20-point game at halftime. They let the US go, and when you let the US go, you know, it's going to be difficult. It's an embarrassment of talent, like Coach you know, Steve Kerr put it. You know, you have Hall of Famers, potential Hall of Famers there. You get somebody from the bench, it makes a difference. You saw how Bama de Bayo did, you know, he came on, you know, absolutely amazing, getting 18 points. But the positives from South Sudan, they were able to keep Steph Curry to just 3 points.
We didn't get the win, but we're proud to be here. It's another step closer to where we're trying to get to the next spot. We're representing Africa, we're representing the continent of Africa, and you know, next game with Serbia, trust me, we're only starting, we'll be there.
They were dancing, chanting after the game. To them it was a very emotional moment. Some came from as far as Boston. I spoke to some from Boston in Massachusetts. Others came from Canada, others came from Kenya just to watch South Sudan versus USA at the Olympics. They never dreamt about it. 2011, they got independence. There was a civil war. A lot of people lost their lives. They went through hell, through very difficult times. And now to see these lost boys, as they call them, coming together, uniting a nation, it was a wonderful moment to be in that gym in Lille.
Must have been quite a festival, and definitely they have been able to unify the entire continent to support the men's national basketball team. Now, Elias, when we speak about Bingwa, we usually speak about the athletes, usually speak about other different individuals, but it's usually an ecosystem, and there's a team that is usually behind the backroom staff that doesn't get as much attention. For example, physios.
Yeah, physios are amazing people. You know, they can fix you, you know, from nowhere into, you know, match fitness or race fitness. People like Peter Nduyu, who has been the personal physio for Eliud Kipchoge for years, is amazing what he's been able to do, preparing our athletes, Eliud, Joshua Kamaror, Faith Kipyegon at the global camp. Physios are amazing people, and like you say, they're behind the scenes. You never see them in front of the cameras. They're in the back room, you know, waiting
and they play a very, very, very key role.
A key role. Without a physio, like in this kind of heat, the recovery, the muscles react differently, so they have to knock the athletes into shape.
na wasaidianga sana na kuchagua fizi ule anaweza kuwa kwa timu na pia kuangalia vile wakimbiaji wako kwa timu. Kwa vile mimi mwenyewe naweza sema mimi ni bingwa kama hawa athletes naona wengi wao ni bingwa, na kukuwa mbingwa ni kwa kazi ile unafanya na ile kitu unaletea watu kwa kikombe.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Bonjour. Thank you so much for watching. From myself and Elias Makori, au revoir.
Bonjour, brought to you by Safaricom, a proud sponsor of Team Kenya at the Olympics.